I'm Annette. I play here in Denver, Colorado in the Kingdom of the Iron Mountains. My pronouns are she and hers, and in this video I'd like to go over hit locations in Amtgard's combat system. So the basic hit system relies on wounds to different target areas. There's 3 target areas: legs, arms, and torso. A wound to the torso will kill you immediately. A wound to a limb loses the use of that limb. And after that, a second wound to any location will kill you. So a wound to the limb that was hit already, I'm dead. A wound to a second target area, still dead. I indicate that I'm dead by saying dead and putting my weapon on my head. This is a signal to all the people around me to tell them that I'm dead. So that's the basic overview, but there's some nuance that tends to confuse people. It's explained in the rules of play, but I'm hoping that a video explanation will also help make it more accessible. So I'm going to go over the different locations and how you take those shots and how you tell the difference between them. So a hit to the arm disables that arm. I can't fight with it anymore. I'll usually put it behind me just to show my opponent that it's out of the fight. A hit to the leg, I have a couple options. I can post, that means keeping this foot in place. I can move the other foot, but I can't move this one until either the leg wound is healed or I'm dead. While I'm doing this, a second hit to that same leg is a valid shot that results in a second wound that kills me. The second other choice that I have if I'm hit in the leg is to drop to that knee. Once I've done that, this is my dead leg, and it's not a valid target anymore. This is true no matter what I decide to do with my live leg. I can put the knee down, I can have it up, and then when I'm hit in the dead leg, I call dead leg and go on fighting. It doesn't count as a wound. The last hit location is the torso, and people will often have questions about how to tell the difference between a torso shot and a limb shot. So for shoulder versus arm, where did that land? So one quick rule that you can use is if the strike came vertically down, probably the shoulder. If it came in more sideways, probably arm. Another test you can do is to take your hand, put it on the place that was hit, and then move the limb. You can see that my hand isn't moving, which means that this was a torso shot, and I would be dead. To distinguish between torso and leg, there's a diagram in the rules of play. The basic idea is to think of the underwear line, and everything above that is torso. You can also do a similar test to what I showed with the shoulder. So, is this leg or hip? I put my hand on it, and then I move my leg, the hand moved. So in that case, it was a leg shot and I would be wounded but not dead. It's important to understand here that the transition between leg and hip it's going to be different depending on your body proportion. So someone who has wider hips will have that clearly leg area extend higher up their body than someone who's built with narrower hips. If I understand where that transition is on me, that still doesn't mean that I understand where it is on my opponent. So it's important to be aware that that can be different for different people. And then there's some shots where there's clearly no dispute. Being stabbed in the center of the torso is never going to be anything except torso, and I'm now dead. So those are the 3 target areas that are used in the system: torso, legs, and arms. There's also some target areas that don't result in scoring valid hits. The first of these is head and neck. So being hit in the head happens. It's not a big deal most of the time. We've built our weapons to the safety standards in the rules of play. But it's still not a thing we want to make a legal target since we don't have people wear helmets. If you're hit in the head, nothing happens. You're not wounded. You can go on fighting. If I hit my opponent in the head and they're dazed and I get a combat advantage from that, as I said, that doesn't happen often, but the rules of play suggest backing up to that point, giving them a minute to recover, and then restarting the fight from just before when I hit them in the head. In order to tell the difference between head and neck versus torso, if it's horizontal, it's torso, and then after it's turned vertically, it's neck. In the front, the collarbone is a clear cut-off line. A shot that lands on the collarbone is torso. Something that lands above it is neck. So that's the first of the areas that isn't a valid hit location. The next area is hand on a melee weapon. So I'm holding a melee weapon, someone hits that hand, nothing happens. I tell them it's hand on weapon and I go on fighting. The line between that's hand on weapon and that's arm would be where the wrist flexes. So everything up here is my hand, this wrist bone, and everything on this side is arm. Foot on ground is the last of the target areas that don't count. Someone hits my foot while it's on the ground, then nothing happens. I tell them foot on ground and go on fighting. The transition through that is to think about the ankle bone. If you're being hit on this ankle or above, that's your leg. If you're being hit on the foot and anything that's below the ankle bone and your foot is planted on the ground, just foot. If my hand is not holding a melee weapon and it's hit, that's a wound to the arm. If my foot is not on the ground and it's hit, that's a wound to the leg. So once we have an understanding of which shots are valid target areas and result in a wound, there is still the question of how to use that information in a fight. And the rules of play talk about our expectations for communication. It's an auto-based game, so every player is responsible for calling their own shots. I can't make that call on anyone else on the field. All I can do is be transparent about what I saw, what I felt, and what I'm taking. If there's a reeve involved in the game, you can also talk to them if you have a question. And it's always okay to ask your opponent politely in the form of a question what happened in the fight. I can't expect my opponent to magically understand what's happening in my head, so it's courteous if I'm able to tell them exactly where they hit me and how I'm taking it. Obviously, this isn't always possible. Sometimes there's a lot of chaos, but when it's possible, it can be a really useful training tool. They hit me, I tell them, double tap on the arm, I'm dead, and then maybe I ask where my shot landed so I know what's going on, what the difference is between what I was trying to throw and then what actually landed on their end. That can be a really helpful training tool if you're working with the same people a lot. And the last important note is if you have to think about it, then take it. The rules of play have these guidelines in order for our combat to be clear and smooth and fun for everybody. And that it's not fun when you're standing around arguing about exactly whether something was absolutely a valid shot, or is there maybe a gray area. Just don't do that. If you have to think about it, if you're on the fence, if I'm on the fence, then I should just take my opponent's shot. Alright, hopefully this video is useful. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have questions.